Airbus is losing control. Engines for its best-selling jets are running out. Airlines are grounded, contracts are at risk, and billions of dollars in orders hang by a thread. The world's largest plane maker is now hostage to a supply chain it cannot command. No one can say which partner will fail next, or how soon global air travel will feel the shock. This isn't just a shortage, it's a fracture in the power structure of aviation. Airbus, once the orchestrator, is now exposed. Its dominance depends on a network of suppliers it cannot fully control. Even the most powerful can be brought to a halt by a single weak link. The question is no longer if disruption will spread, but where the next break will appear. The illusion of central authority has collapsed into a scramble for scarce parts, and every player is now forced to reveal how little leverage they truly have. The Airbus A320neo is the backbone of global short-haul travel, over 10,000 orders. Hundreds of airlines depend on it to keep their networks running and their balance sheets healthy. But each jet relies on engines from just two manufacturers, Pratt & Whitney and CFM International. Both are struggling to deliver. Delays have doubled in the past year. In late 2023, Indigo, Asia's largest budget airline, was forced to ground more than 70 aircraft, nearly a fifth of its fleet, waiting for engines that never arrived. The backlog is growing. Every missed delivery means lost revenue, strained relationships, and rising penalties. This is not a temporary bottleneck. Airlines have begun cannibalizing their own fleets, removing engines from parked aircraft to keep others flying. Maintenance schedules are thrown into chaos. Lessors, who finance much of the world's fleet, are demanding compensation for idle assets. The financial exposure is spreading across the entire aviation ecosystem. For every grounded jet, there are ripple effects, lost ticket sales, disrupted schedules, and mounting costs that no one budgeted for. The crisis is not about a single missing part. It's about a system built on just-in-time delivery stretched to its limit. Engine makers face impossible trade-offs. Demand for new jets surged after the pandemic, but ramping up production isn't simple. Each engine has thousands of precision components. Many come from small specialized suppliers, some with only a handful of qualified workers. When one supplier falters, the entire chain stalls. Airbus's leverage is limited. It can pressure engine makers, but it cannot manufacture engines itself. Pratt & Whitney faces a recall crisis. Microscopic contamination in metal parts is forcing mass inspections and repairs. CFM is battling shortages of castings and forgings. Both are locked into long-term contracts with Airbus, but penalties for late delivery are dwarfed by the cost of rushing flawed engines to market. The incentives are misaligned. Engine makers want to protect quality and avoid catastrophic failures. Airbus wants volume and speed. Airlines want reliability. No one can get everything they want. The weakest supplier sets the pace for the entire industry. The financial mechanism is brutal. Engine makers are contractually obligated to deliver on time, but penalties for delay are capped and often negotiated down. The real risk is reputational and operational. If an engine fails in service, the liability can be catastrophic, far exceeding any late fee. So, when faced with a choice between rushing production and risking a recall, engine makers slow down. As one airline executive put it, "We're juggling schedules every week, just hoping the next engine shipment actually arrives." They prioritize safety and long-term survival over short-term delivery targets. This creates a feedback loop. As delays mount, Airbus's production lines slow, airlines lose patience, and the pressure on suppliers intensifies. But the system cannot move faster than its slowest, most fragile node. The inflection point came when Airbus publicly warned that engine supplies could not keep up with demand. This was not a negotiating tactic, it was an admission of lost control. Airlines began to hedge, delaying orders or seeking alternative aircraft. Lessors demanded compensation. Engine makers, already stretched, faced impossible choices: prioritize repairs, new builds, or spare parts. Each decision left someone waiting and someone else exposed. Recovery became impossible when the recall at Pratt & Whitney forced hundreds of engines out of service. CFM could not fill the gap. Airbus's production targets became fiction. The company's lead in the global market, built over decades, was suddenly at risk. The breakdown was not a single event, but a cascade. As more engines were pulled for inspection, the pool of available spares evaporated. Airlines that had planned for growth were forced to shrink. Maintenance crews worked overtime, but the bottleneck was upstream at the foundries, the forges, the microscopic inspection labs. The entire system was revealed as brittle, not resilient. By the time Airbus acknowledged the scale of the crisis, the options for recovery had narrowed to triage and damage control. This is not just an Airbus problem. It's a warning for any industry built on complex, global supply chains. Power does not reside with the biggest player, but with the most fragile link. When incentives diverge and no one can absorb the shock, the system fails. The illusion of control evaporates. For aviation, the stakes are measured in grounded planes and lost billions of dollars. For other sectors, the lesson is clear. Resilience is not a given, and dominance can vanish overnight. The same dynamics are at play in semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and energy. When a single supplier falters, the consequences ripple outward, exposing the limits of scale and the dangers of over-optimization. The Airbus engine crisis is a case study in how tightly coupled systems can unravel, not from a dramatic blow, but from the slow, grinding failure of a single, overlooked component. Airbus's engine crisis is not a fluke. It's a glimpse of how modern supply chains unravel. The semiconductor shortage of recent years showed how a single missing component can halt entire industries. The next break may come from a different link, but the outcome will be the same. Control is always more fragile than it appears. Capital rifts, where money breaks,